Elias Turner's words followed Joseph up the frozen trace. Playing soldier in a ruin, Reeves. Now the wind screamed. Joseph threw the heavy bar across the gate.
You really think this place will keep us warm? It smells like 40 years of dead air.
It stood 50 years. It'll stand one winter more. We'll make it work.
Pape, Papa, look, musket holes. Did real soldiers ever shoot from here?
They did. Those thick walls stopped more than bullets. They stopped the wind.
They gathered at the first fire, a small flame against the dark wind clawing at the chinks.
Thomas, stay close. Your hands are ice.
Outside, the storm hammered. Inside, the family huddled in the darkness of the fort, waiting. The strongest walls in the territory sat empty, dismissed. But the cold didn't care about laughter.
There's dirt in every corner, Joseph, and I can still feel the wind through the logs.
Look at these walls, Sarah. Twice as thick as any settler's cabin. We just need to seal the gaps.
It's so thick, Papa. Did they cut these with axes?
Squared by hand, each one set tight, meant to stop a musket ball. Nothing gets through.
The fire had caught, but the cold still pressed in through every unsealed chink, a patient enemy. Joseph fed another split log into the flames, watching Sarah shiver despite the wool.
It's not the walls I am worried about, Joseph. It's how long we can last out here, cut off from everyone.
We'll last. I'll bring in enough wood to last until spring, if I have to. Trust me, Sarah.
She didn't answer, but she didn't turn away. Outside, the wind howled. Inside, a small, stubborn warmth began to grow. The fort had stood empty for decades. Now it held one family, one fire, and the barest beginning of hope. At first light, Joseph hitched the horse and left Sarah with a promise to return before the next snow.
Don't let them get under your skin, Joseph. They don't know what we're doing.
The settlement lay buried in drifts, a row of flimsy cabins shivering under the gray sky. Elias Turner's store was the only one still open. He stood on the porch, arms crossed.
Well, look who crawled out of his ruin. Brought any soldiers with you, Reeves? That blockhouse hasn't seen a fire in years. You'll freeze before Christmas.
I'll take 20 pounds of flour, a sack of salt, and a tin of lard.
A couple of men chuckled, but Elias's laugh was the loudest. Joseph didn't flinch. He paid without another word, loaded the horse, and turned his back on the settlement. The sting of their laughter followed him back, but it only hardened his resolve. Let them laugh now. Joseph rode back into the yard as the sky thickened with new snow. He unloaded the supplies without a word.
You're back. Did Elias give you trouble?
Nothing that matters. We have what we need.
Without another word, Joseph knelt by the wall and began packing the cracks with mud and rags. Thomas came to help.
Hey, Papa, look. More musket holes, way up high. Did they really fight here?
They did, son. This fort once held the line against raids. Those walls never failed.
Blue whined at the loophole. Outside, the temperature had begun to plunge.
It's warmer in here than I expected. The logs are holding the fire's heat.
The fort was built to keep men alive. Sarah, not just soldiers, anyone inside these walls.
Outside, the wind howled. Inside, the family gathered closer to the fire, the thick walls muting the storm. By morning, the temperature had dropped to 20 below. Joseph fed the fire and the blockhouse held its warmth. In the settlement, it was different. The thin log cabins began to betray their owners. Inside Elias Turner's cabin, frost bloomed on the walls like white moss. A neighbor stepped outside and shouted that his east wall had cracked clean through the log. The sound had woken him.
Let 'em talk. A little frost never killed a man. It'll warm up tomorrow.
But the temperature did not rise. By nightfall, it was 25 below. At the blockhouse, Sarah wrapped Thomas in an extra blanket and looked at Joseph with something softer than doubt.
I was wrong about this place. It's solid.
It's not the place, Sarah. It's the walls.
Outside, the settlement shivered. but no one came to the blockhouse. Not yet. The fire had been burning 3 days straight, and the woodpile that had looked like enough for a month was down to a few armfuls.
Joseph, the wood's almost gone. Another night like the last one, and we'll be out.
I see it. I'll take the sled and cut more before the next snow comes.
You can't go out there again. It's 30 below. Joseph, you won't come back.
I will. Better one man cold than a family frozen. Blue will stay with me.
I can help, Papa. I am not afraid of the cold.
You'll help by staying here. Keep your mother safe, Thomas. That's an order.
Joseph strapped on the axe, hitched Blue to the sled, and pulled the scarf over his mouth. The door opened on a white wall of wind. The cold hit them like a fist. Sarah watched until they vanished, then pressed her palm to the log, willing the fort to hold. With Joseph gone, the blockhouse fell silent, but for the wind. Sarah remembered Blue's old whine at the loophole and pressed her hand to the wall.
Thomas, bring the rags and mud. There's a gap here, and the cold's getting through.
She packed the gap with rags. Thomas smeared mud over them, and the thin blade of air vanished.
It stopped. The wind can't get in here anymore.
Half a mile out, Joseph swung the axe into a dead pine, the cold stealing his breath with every stroke.
Don't stop. One more log. They need this.
The sled was loaded high with split pine. Blue strained against the harness, pulling for all he was worth. The blockhouse rose from the white, like a gray ghost. Joseph fell against the gate, barely able to lift the bar. Sarah yanked the door open. Thomas pulled the sled inside. The fire welcomed them. Joseph knelt by the flames, frozen beard dripping, his family around him, the woodpile restored. 2 nights later, the temperature fell to 30 below and kept falling. The settlement's cabins began to die. Inside Martha Harlow's cabin, her baby's cough was thin and dry. The cold had seeped into the crib.
Please, little one, just breathe. Just keep breathing.
A sharp crack echoed down the street. Another settler's log wall had split clean through, leaving a gap wide enough for the wind to pour in. Elias Turner stuffed rags and old newspaper into the widening cracks of his own cabin, but the wind blew through as if mocking him.
This damn cold. It won't beat me. This cabin stood 20 years.
But the logs were shrinking, the chinking crumbling. His fire had to work twice as hard to warm half the space. Outside, the water barrel had frozen solid, the ice bursting the staves. The settlement was losing. Miles away, the blockhouse stood dark against the snow, its loophole glowing faintly orange. But no one had yet swallowed their pride enough to walk the frozen road and knock. Joseph remembered a trick from the old fort days. He called Thomas over and pointed to the inner wall.
Thomas, we're going to build a second wall inside this one. A dead air space.
A dead air space, like a secret room inside the walls.
Just a gap. The air trapped inside will hold the heat. Now help me gather those old boards.
They scavenged old boards from the inner rooms and mixed frozen earth with water by the fire. Sarah watched from the hearth, her skepticism softening as the second wall rose, board by board. By evening, a second barrier of wood and packed earth stood against the logs. The draft that had whispered for days fell silent.
It's warmer. I can feel it. Joseph, you've made this place truly live.
The fort was built to keep out enemies. We just gave it another layer of armor.
Outside, the temperature held at 30 below. Inside, the blockhouse had become a fortress of warmth. On the 4th night of the deep freeze, a knock came at the blockhouse gate, weak, desperate. Joseph lifted the bar and opened a crack. Martha Harlow stood in the blowing snow, her baby wrapped in a thin blanket against her chest.
Please, Joseph. The cabin won't hold. My baby can't stop coughing. Let us in, I am begging you.
We can't. We barely have enough for ourselves. You know that?
We will. Sarah, look at the child. This fort was made to protect.
Martha stumbled inside, half frozen. Sarah's jaw was tight, but she didn't say another word.
Here, Take my blanket. Is the baby okay?
Thank you, son. He's so cold. Just keep the fire high, please.
Sarah watched the dwindling flour sack. But then the baby coughed again, and her face softened. The fort that once held soldiers now held 2 families and a fragile truce. By midnight, the mercury hit 40 below and kept sinking. The air outside would kill a man in minutes, but inside the blockhouse, the fire burned steady. The thick logs held the heat like a living thing.
I found this in the corner the day we arrived. A journal from the fort's engineer. He writes, "The walls are double-thick squared logs, interlocked at the corners. They resist musket balls and hold heat better than any cabin."
You knew all along that this place was built for it.
I knew the fort was designed to hold the line. The cold is just another enemy.
Did the soldiers know it would keep us warm 50 years later?
Maybe not, but the man who drew these plans did. He built for the worst.
A silence settled, but not of fear. It was awe, the realization that they sat inside a fortress built for war, now saving their lives from the cold. Outside, the settlement froze. Inside, the fort that everyone had dismissed was proving stronger than any cabin in the territory. A deep groan echoed from above. The snow outside had piled so high the main roof beam began to bow inward, dust sifting from the joints.
Papa, look! The beam. It's splitting right down the middle.
Everyone grab that spare log. Thomas, help me wedge it under the beam. Martha, lift with us.
Martha laid her baby in the corner and put her shoulder to the log. Sarah held the lantern high, casting flickering light on the straining wood. They heaved inch by inch until the log was upright, wedged beneath the sagging beam. Dirt and snow sifted down as the fort itself seemed to clench.
Hold it steady. Don't let it slip. One wrong move, and the whole roof could come down.
The beam groaned once more, a terrible splintering cry, then settled with a shudder. The prop held. The ceiling stood firm.
It's holding. Oh, thank God. I thought we were buried.
The fort still stands. We stand with it together.
In that moment, with the beam secured and the fire still burning, they were not 2 families but one crew, bound by the same walls. Outside, the blizzard raged, but inside, they had survived another test. Before dawn on the 5th day, Elias Turner's cabin gave a final shudder and collapsed inward, splintering like a trap. Elias crawled from the wreckage, clutching his chest. Blood had frozen on his forehead where a beam struck him.
The fort. It's the only place left. God help me. I have to reach the fort.
Half frozen, he banged on the blockhouse gate with the last of his strength.
Reeves, Joseph, my cabin's gone. Let me in, for God's sake.
Let him in? Joseph, he laughed at us. He said we would freeze.
Open the gate, Thomas, now.
Thomas slid the bar. Elias fell through the door onto the dirt floor, too weak to rise.
I was wrong. Reeves, your fort. It's the only thing standing. I am sorry.
No one spoke. Joseph lifted Elias to the fire. The mocker had become the beggar, and the fort received him. With 5 souls inside, the food was vanishing. The flour sack lay limp, the salt nearly gone, and the woodpile had become a daily gamble.
We rationed to half portions. Starting now. I've seen winters like this. You stretch what you have.
My baby can't live on half a cup. We need the full share. The child is all I have.
This is what happens when you turn a fort into an inn. There's no end to the mouths.
Enough. I know where the old cabins are. There could be flour, maybe dried meat. I'll go tonight.
Number, you almost froze last time. I won't let you walk out that door again.
And if I don't, Thomas starves. The baby starves. You starve. I have to, Sarah.
He strapped on the axe and whistled for Blue. The dog rose, tail low, reading the tension.
Then I can't lose you. Not like this.
Joseph pulled the scarf over his mouth. Blue pressed close. The gate groaned open, and the storm swallowed them both. The whiteout blurred the world to a few feet. Joseph stumbled toward the first collapsed cabin. its roof sagging under the weight of the snow.
There, a sack of flour half hidden, and a tin of beans. Take it all, every scrap.
He shouldered the meager haul and turned back. The return trail was already gone, buried under fresh drifts. He cut past a lean-to shed. Then the roof groaned. A cascade of snow and rotted boards thundered down. Beams crashed down. Joseph felt something crush his leg. The world went white, then black. Blue clamped onto his coat and pulled. Joseph dragged free, the beams still pinning his leg until Blue yanked again, muzzle wet with fear.
Good dog. Good dog. Don't let go.
They crawled the last quarter mile. Joseph's leg dragged. The sack of flour was still tied to his belt. The blockhouse rose from the white like a gray ghost. Joseph fell against the gate, barely able to lift the bar. The gate opened. He passed the sack inside before collapsing. A few days more. Just enough. On the 6th day, the wind shifted. The temperature rose just enough for the snow to soften, and water began seeping under the blockhouse door.
Water's coming in. If it reaches the supplies, we lose everything. We need to dig a drain.
Elias grabbed the shovel without a word. Martha set her baby on a high shelf and joined. Even Thomas carried rocks to line the trench.
Joseph, your leg is still hurt. Let the others do this.
Number. Everyone works, including me. Hand me that shovel.
Sarah passed him the shovel. Together, they cut a narrow channel through the dirt floor, sloped toward the far corner.
The water's going down. Look, Papa.
Good lad. Keep the trench clear. It'll hold the supplies dry.
By nightfall, the flood was controlled. The supplies sat safe on raised pallets. The blockhouse had withstood another assault. Sarah touched Joseph's arm. No words. She didn't need them. On the 7th day, a fist hammered the gate. Joseph opened it to a stranger with frost-blackened fingers, and a voice cracked from cold. The man rasped that the supply train had wrecked 10 miles south. No help would reach the settlement for weeks. Behind him, 4 more souls stumbled through the snow. The blockhouse now held 10, and the last of the flour was dust.
We've got 10 mouths and a handful of beans. From now on, 1 cup of flour a day, no exceptions.
1 cup? That's not enough to keep a man alive, Reeves. You'll starve us slow.
Then you starve slow instead of fast. Joseph's right. This is the only way.
Martha clutched her baby and nodded. Even Thomas didn't argue. Joseph's word had become law inside these walls. Elias turned away, jaw tight, but he didn't leave. There was nowhere else. That night, Joseph sat by the fire, writing names and rations in the engineer's journal. A ledger of souls. The blockhouse had become a fortress again. Not against musket balls, but against the long, hungry dark. When the thaw finally came, it arrived like a slow breath. Icicles dripped, and the first sun in weeks touched the blockhouse logs. But as the snow melted, the settlement's true face emerged. Cabins collapsed, walls split, a graveyard of splintered lumber. The survivors stepped out of the fort, blinking in the raw light to see what the winter had done.
Every single one of those flimsy shacks is gone. Reeves, your fort held.
It held because it was built to hold. Same as it was 100 years ago.
No one laughed now. The men who had called him a fool stood in the wreckage of their own choices.
You were right, Joseph. From the start. This place saved us all.
Thomas ran to the gate, tracing the old red arrow with his finger. It still points, he said. The fort that had protected soldiers now protected civilians. The strongest walls in the territory had been empty, dismissed, waiting, and when the deepest cold in memory came, they did not crack. Elias Turner walked to the center of the gathered survivors, his head lower than it had been in 40 years.
I called this man a fool. I laughed, but his walls saved my life, and I owe him my labor to rebuild.
That's enough. Elias, help us show these folks how to build walls that stand. This journal tells how to square the logs, how to interlock the corners. Same as the fort. No cabin needs to fall again.
One by one, the settlers came forward, touching the journal's pages, asking how to set the foundations. Martha promised her baby would grow up in a home built with double-thick logs. Blue wagged his tail as if he understood. Even Thomas was given a task, measuring and marking the first new sill log while Elias squared the end with an adze. The fort had become a schoolroom, and Joseph its teacher. No one called him a fool now. By sundown, the first post of the new settlement was set in the ground, and the red arrow on the blockhouse caught the last light. The fort that protected soldiers had protected civilians. Its strongest walls would now rise across the valley. By the second week of spring, Joseph marked out a garden beside the blockhouse. The ground had thawed enough to break.
A garden. I never thought I'd see anything grow here, but it will.
Blue, catch.
The blockhouse smelled of pine and fresh earth now. It was no longer a ruin. It was home.
The arrow still points. Not to a fort anymore. To a home.
Settlers came and went, borrowing the journal, asking about corner notches. The blockhouse had become the community's hearth.
Thomas, come inside for supper. And bring Blue. He's earned his bowl.
That evening, they ate by the fire as they had during the freeze, but now the door stood open to the warm spring air. The red arrow on the wall caught the sunset, pointing east toward the new spring, toward tomorrow. The fort that protected soldiers now protected a family, a community, a future. The strongest walls in the territory had finally found their purpose. Before dawn, when the world was still gray, Joseph stepped outside and stood by the blockhouse wall.
60 years ago, a soldier painted that red arrow. He never knew it would save a family.
The blockhouse had been built for war. For a century, it had waited. Men called it a relic. They laughed at the man who moved his family inside.
But when 40 below came, the relic didn't laugh. It held.
The fort that protected soldiers now protected civilians, his family, and those who had mocked him. No one called it a ruin now.
Sometimes the strongest walls are the ones already standing.
The red arrow still pointed east, as it had since the fort was raised, waiting for the cold that would prove its worth. But the cold had come and the fort had held, just as it was built to do. Now, on any spring morning, a thread of smoke rose from the chimney, and the sound of a hammer echoed from the garden. The red arrow, faded but still visible, marked the wall where a soldier once aimed, and where a family now lived. The blockhouse was not a ruin. It was not a relic. It was a beginning. Joseph's name would not appear in newspapers. His story would not be recorded in county ledgers, but in the valley. When winter winds howled, men pointed to the blockhouse and remembered the strongest walls in the territory had been dismissed as a relic, until the cold proved that some things built for war were also built for life. And sometimes the walls that save us are the ones we walked past every day, waiting to be needed. Waiting.